Hello, everyone. So glad to see you today. I'm so glad to be going live with the group of people that I'm going live with. If you are just tuning in, please go ahead and like this video and share this video so that we can see that you're watching. I want to know that you're watching if you are watching. So go ahead and say hello in the comments, share and like the video while I find it on Facebook. Here we go. If you're watching, go ahead and share and like this video and let us know that you're watching. Hey, everybody, if you're just tuning in, Starting Point is a virtual living room where I get to sit down with some people that I really trust week to week and talk through overcoming mental blocks and facing fears as it pertains to different phases of life. This season, we have been talking exclusively where I get to sit down with some people that I really trust. This season, we have been talking exclusively about friendship because friendship is something that I'm really trying to get in order in my life and figure out how to be a good friend. And so I have brought some of my friends on to share with us about friendship as it pertains to community. And I'm using the word community because we're going to talk about a lot of stuff tonight, right? But I'm using the word community because a lot of times in church, we can use this Christianese terms. We use terms like we use big words like community, and nobody is ever really defining what that means or what that should look like in your life. And so I want to take the time to sit down with people that I think are very wise, that I think that I would like to be in community with, to talk through what that should look like in your life. And so I'm going to introduce them to you now. And guys, if you would introduce yourself in whatever order that you would like to introduce yourself, and just share with the people your name, what it is that you do, and if you had to choose your favorite meal, the best meal that or the most memorable meal that you've ever eaten at church, go ahead and share that now. Whoever wants to go first can go.
Go ahead, Deb.
My name is Debbie Mitchell. I'm a dental hygienist, and I've been a one for 7 years. My most memorable meal at church, I'm a pretty picky eater, so I try to go to the things that they bought from the store. So usually it's fried chicken that I usually go to. Pretty simple, easy.
That's a good choice. You can't go wrong with store-bought fried chicken.
My name is Mike Johnson. I am a realtor here in Longview, Texas. And Deb took mine, but it's all part of the classic church meal, the Super One chicken with green beans and sometimes they would have some spaghetti on the side. I remember it only because we ate it so much.
Spaghetti is a go-to, not just for church though, at home too.
It's not a go-to. Some people, they should have had some surveys afterwards for some of these meals. I would have been honest about the bland spaghetti, but it's all right though.
My name is Holly, and professionally, I am a buyer planner for a large cabinet manufacturing company. That doesn't really fit my life, but if I could explain purpose, I could through that. But I enjoy what I do, yes. But my most memorable meal in church is nothing. I don't want to eat at church. I love church. I love the people, but I do not want their food. That's probably as good as I can get. And if I would eat at church, it would have to be barbecue because I know that process. So
I respect it. I think that you got to be careful where you
get it. You don't want theirs, Holly. I'm telling
you. Don't eat mixtures.
Sour cream in your spaghetti?
Get out.
Don't look like that, guy.
Is that a thing?
That mean?
Sour cream goes on everything. It goes on spaghetti, pizza, everything.
I don't eat sour cream.
Me neither.
This interview is over.
Canceled.
Galilee Baptist Church. If you're coming in, go ahead and tell us in the comments below. If you're watching this, what is your favorite or your most memorable meal that you've ever eaten at church? So I went to Galilee Baptist Church growing up, and we used to eat good. We had meatballs. If you ever had the church meatballs, let us know, because people on this call was confused about that. And we used to eat chili cheese dogs during vacation Bible school, and it was just good times. Good times.
Hormel chili.
Yes. Yes.
Because they didn't walk by Wolf Brand.
But we had the shredded cheese. We didn't get the little watery cheese. We was
The Franks. They got the Franks with the Hormel chili.
we were eating.
I will say though,
The cheese didn't melt.
PK. That didn't even melt. You just took it to the head. I grew up a PK, so we got invited to a lot of places to eat after church. And there was a lady, I will always sing her praises, Miss Jessie Mae Dow. I'll never forget that name. This woman, I mean, she could cook better than, I don't know anybody that can outcook her. There's some people that right up there with her. But she would have Salisbury steak, greens, cornbread, or just the works there with pound cakes and everything after, all for us, all for the pastor's family. So that was one little perk that I will remember forever.
Salisbury steak. What is that? Is that just a hamburger patty?
Wait a minute. The way you said it though was
It's got gravy on it.
You kind of downed it right there. Just a hamburger patty, just threw it in. No, it was more than that. There was seasonings in it and gravy, and you put it on top of the or right next to your mashed potatoes and put the gravy on it. Look, what are we talking about today? We're not talking about food.
So if you eat hamburger patties with gravy, let us know in the comments. We're interested. But tonight we are talking about community, which I talked to you guys a little bit about that earlier, but I'm going to reiterate that that's going to be the subject of this conversation tonight. If at any point you're watching this and you have comments or questions that you want to ask this group, there's a lot of wisdom on this call, so you can go ahead and put it in the comments too. But my question, Jazz, somebody, you preaching, Mike. Okay, Jazz. So you don't eat ranch, but you eat hamburger patties and gravy. That's
my classmate. That's my classmate.
My first question for y'all is, when you hear the word, and you can answer this in whatever order you want, when you hear the words like Christian community, or you hear the words community, and you're thinking about your church and your upbringing, what do you think of?
If I were to think about my upbringing, it would definitely be, well, let me share this, because I always thought when I was little that the people in your neighborhood all had to go to the same church. I didn't know that you could go to any other church. So I always thought it was the people that lived around me, that we all went to the same church. We all kind of shared the same values, lived the same type of lifestyle. But as I grew older, I realized that that wasn't the case. And there were a lot of mixtures of people from different classes of life even. So that mixture brought in to me a different level or a different type of love, because I understood that love could come from all different people, all different backgrounds. More or less, we were all Black. There was not really mixed denomination, of course, when I was younger, but definitely love and respect for one another, and even wisdom. That's one thing. The older people taught me so much wisdom. That's what I think of when I think of Christian community.
That's good.
As referring to what Holly said, to be honest, it was everybody in the neighborhood that went to this one church. Yeah. It was a family church. And so I think at the age of 12, my mom moved us to another church, and it was a mixture of people of different colors. And so just kind of reverting back to what Holly said, just being able to learn how to interact with people that didn't necessarily look like you, and being able to get love from them, but also give them love as well. So, yeah.
As I would piggyback off that, we started off. We didn't go to a whole lot of different churches, but I think there's probably 3 prominent churches from my youth. One in Gladewater. We traveled a little bit. Then we went to Tatum, to church in Mayflower. but primarily my family went. The mother side, my mother's side of the family primarily went there, and we went to church there as well for up until I was probably in the 7th grade, and then my dad became a pastor in Linden Kildare. So community, kind of transformed a little bit from family, where we were always excited about going to church to see our family, our first cousins, and then it kind of shifted over to a forced place of having to be with people. I didn't know what a calling was, but for whatever the calling was, we had to be here at this place, and so it wasn't necessarily a good in my head. I mean, there was always nice people there, people that I still have friendships, relationships with today. But it wasn't necessarily something I thought of as a positive. It's more so something that was kind of forced upon me. This is just where you had to be and the people you had to be with. So
yeah, I would say that I think looking back, when I was being young, right? You just okay. Rewind, Jasmine. When I grew up, I was at church a lot, all the time, every day, all the days. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday's football. Saturday morning, we was still going to church for practices for youth stuff. Sunday, we was back at church. And so feeling like you were forced to be there, it was just like, dang, you ain't got nothing else. But it was also where I met a lot of people a lot of people in ISD went there. So I had a lot of friends that I went to school with that were there and that's like I made my first friends because we were just all around
Uh-oh.
each other all the time. Can you hear me?
I lost you a little bit. I don't know if there was anybody else.
Yeah, it kind of froze a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we good now?
Mm-hmm.
So when I was growing up, I feel like it felt like I was forced, but looking back, I see the benefit of being in church that much, like being in church every day, all the days, because I feel like I know scripture now, like memorization wise, that I wouldn't have known otherwise. And so growing up in that kind of community, it was just like the Bible was ingrained in you. Was like fellowship among you ingrained? I don't know if they taught me how to fellowship or how to be friends with people, but it was just like we was there all the time and we had common interests, so we just kind of figured it out. I think that as I kept getting older, right, and that was in a predominantly Black space, not even predominantly Black. That was in a very Black space. It was all Black. It wasn't no other people. And then by the time I went to college, it was the first time that I was exposed to like community groups. Like we're gonna come together and go to somebody's house on a Wednesday night. And that was in a predominantly white space where we were talking through different things and I was learning how to interact. And I was like, man, this is a side of church that I haven't seen before. Not to say that what I've had in the past was bad, just that this is a very different side of community that I've ever seen before. And then I came back to Longview and the church I go to now, it didn't have the community groups. It was back to like just being there all the time. And I see the benefits of both of those things, but I've seen community kind of evolve in my mind and in my understanding of what it is as I've grown older. And so my question to you is, how has community evolved over your life? I know that you guys may have alluded to it when you were saying that earlier, but do you feel like it's had a positive or a negative evolution in your life?
For me,
Go ahead.
for me, I feel like it has evolved. It has had positive impact. At the second church we went to, like once I was put, I didn't necessarily develop friendships with people there. I'm pretty quiet, introvert, and so I didn't know how to interact to make those. And so not until I went to it was New Birth at the time, where I began to start to develop friendships, start to see why it was so important to have people in your life, especially people that are kind of walking the same path as you. So definitely positive for me.
That's good.
I was saying, I was gonna say, like, even with thinking about what you was talking a minute ago about fellowship, like for me, defining fellowship, that was like a place in the church, like the fellowship hall, where we went to have chicken and spaghetti. Like you went to the fellowship hall That was the only time we were ever in there. You know, other time it was sanctuary, and then we were out the door. You know, as kids, of course, I didn't really, you know, think of anything like that anyway. We were fellowshipping outside playing football and stuff in our church clothes. But as we grew up, you know, you start to recognize, you know, that there was more need. I started recognizing as I got older that there was more need, especially when I kind of distanced myself from the church a little bit, when I felt a little unfulfilled, and distanced myself from the church. And I kind of was able to look at it from a different perspective and recognize, like, you know, that that maybe I wasn't participating in the way that's most beneficial, you know, in the way that the Lord designed the church to be, you know. So then especially after I got married, and we started looking at things a different way, you know, community really took on legs of its own, because you kind of recognize, you know, that, you know, you're not supposed to be out here doing this by yourself, you know. And Sunday, Wednesday services are great, but that doesn't really define a community, especially if you're not talking to anybody.
Tell us more. What does that mean? Sunday services and Wednesday are great, but that doesn't really define community.
Well, the as far as, you know, like Sundays and Wednesdays, you know, some people call them like pep rallies and things like that, getting ready for the week and everything, which is good. I mean, but a lot of times when we're at, you know, service, somebody is leading, you know, everybody may join in corporate praise and song. But as far as when we start learning, we're learning primarily from one teacher, whoever it is that Sunday. We're primarily learning from one teacher, and then we go our separate ways. Well, at that point, we haven't done any communing amongst each other. We haven't done any fellowshipping amongst each other. We've just been listening and learning, which is all good. But that's only one fraction of what we need in order to really walk this life out.
Mm. That's good. Because even I'm thinking about growing up, so being in two different styles of churches, right, which I was talking about earlier, growing up and being in a Black space, in a Black church, and then going to college and being in these predominantly white spaces in these community groups, I noticed, well, kind of what you're saying, Mike, is that like the focus on the pastor within the Black church, right? It's just like, he is, I don't want to use the word king, but it almost feels like he is the person that is, you are receiving everything from. And I think that can be, I think that as I've gotten older, my evolution in community has just been realizing that, like, so I have a lot of friends that have like pastors who are close to them, that they'll be like, well, when somebody gets sick, they expect the pastor to be here. When this happens, they expect the pastor to be here. They expect the pastor to call them and check on them and say happy birthday to them and do all these things, because in our heads, he is our community. But realizing like that there are other people that are a part of this community that are important, that you can call on, that can say happy birthday to you. Yeah.
And that's where things really changed, like the leaf really turned over for me. I said, you know, Alicia and I, my wife Alicia and I, we were doing a radio show. And, you know, when I went to college, I stepped away from the primarily Black church to go to Green Acres in Tyler, you know, and I would go in there, get my little 30-minute word, be out the door, you know. It was what it was. I'm not gonna go into any detail. But when I got back, I still recognized that I desired to be in the predominant Black church, but I felt like I was missing something. And to that point, you know, I was looking at the pastor, and I guess, you know, in my view, the pastor didn't have a whole lot of allure, you know, because my dad was a pastor. I tell everybody, he's the greatest man I've ever met. So like, every pastor like has a hill to climb in my eyes, you know, like, because I've experienced great pastoral leadership, and that's not knocking anybody else. It's just the experience that I had. So, you know, I remember very clearly, we were on the radio show and that Alicia and I had, and I was kind of railing on the Black church a little bit because I was just disappointed, you know, in what we were receiving. And I remember the Lord telling me specifically, like, you need to stop, because you don't know where all this comes from. not and having to go back from that point and do research on, understanding how the Black pastor became such a prominent figure is the role. I do believe the role is a lot of times mishandled now. But when only one person could read, of course, we all look to one person in order to learn, which is not a bad thing. But the question, I was talking about Barbara this morning, the question came to my mind, is like, okay, but are we free? Are we free now? Or are we still slaves? And when it hit me at that point, like, hey, we're free now. I started recognizing, like, it's not only my duty to critique the church, like, hey, you need to have more spaces where we can go. You need to create things. It was actually more so, okay, now we need to start creating. I had a problem with it myself as far as my growth in community. I had a problem with isolation. Right, isolation would be my thing. I've got that bad. I can tuck away from the world. I really don't need much of anything besides my family, my home. I'm good. My God, I'm good. And but I recognized after listening to Andy Stanley's sermon one day, and I don't promote everything he teaches all the time, but this one specific thing he talked about David when he sinned against the Lord in Bathsheba. He was up there by himself. It said at a time when kings were supposed to be at war, David, everybody else is at war. He's at the house by himself, and now his ability to be tempted expanded, exponentially because he was alone. So I recognized, I was like, Mike, you're the same way. I desire to honor my Lord, my wife, my family, but I'm alone. My ability to be tempted because I have no accountability had risen like crazy. So I literally prayed for male friends. Like, Lord, I need friends in my life that I can call and depend on, that can hold me accountable, and from there, God granted me friends. And then from there, we also started a small life group as well. So that was big for me in recognizing, like, my part in helping the church that I go to.
Yeah. Do y'all think that sometimes people forget that they play a role in the church? Like in the community of the church?
That's a good question. I think that sometimes, even thinking about what Mike was saying, not knowing if we're free, really knowing our place and our purpose, sometimes we get confused and not really understand that what we have has value and that we can add to what's already going on. One of the things that has evolved really in my community is understanding the difference between ministry and friendship, because you can't do the same thing with both people. And I'm trying not to allude to my sermon topic for my later on sermon topic, but I realized that everybody that I minister to won't be my friend, but I can always minister to my friends. And you have to understand that there is a differentiation between the two of those things. And that is how we build community, because it doesn't matter if it's a friendship or not. There are some people that you love on, and that does look like friendship, but it becomes community, it becomes family, because that's how we as people evolve, because we learn a greater purpose when we're giving out things. One of the things that I've learned about myself is that when I don't talk, like in even the isolation thing, I get so filled up with words and things that God has given me that I forget. And so yes, I do fail to give it out to those who are around me, whether they be in my church or my community with outside of the church, because of course we have to remember that we are the temple, that we are God's people, that we give out those things no matter if we're in the four walls or not. But we have to remember that that evolves all the time. And even thinking about looking at the pastor as the king or whatever, I'm one of those people that I watch so many different things. But since I was really young, I love to learn about cults, because I always said I didn't want to be a part of one. And it probably seems crazy, but I've learned to understand people's value in my life and to give them a proper place, and also to understand who God is, so that God can then lead me to understand who that person is to me.
Yeah. I think that's helpful to you, and I think that's helpful to the pastor, because I don't want to put the connotation on the pastors being the king in Black church as it is like that they are making themselves that. Sure, there are some people that are making themselves that, but I think that sometimes we just with whom much is given, there's a lot of responsibility, and so a lot of people will place the responsibility of their faith or their salvation in this person and think that instead of communicating with God, which is what community is about, communication, instead of being reconciled to God and communicating with God, or being in communication to the people that are around you, we just say, no, like, you're responsible for me. And I think that's harmful to you. That's harmful to your pastor. That puts a lot of pressure on them that's just not necessary. And then they running around everywhere and they can't be at 17 weddings and birthday parties and they don't, it's like, we have to allow even the pastor to be human, especially within our own culture, within Black culture, allowing the pastor to be like, okay, take today off. Okay,
please.
you've been teaching every Wednesday. Maybe we should switch this up. Maybe we should just go play a basketball game or something this Wednesday.
Right, because it becomes about, we have to remember that it's followership with all of us and not ownership, because the pastor also has to remember that he is a follower in all things. And remember that it's not about an I, it's about God, it's about we, it's about what can we do as a whole to move this thing forward, because even the visionary gets tired. Even he gets tired and even he cannot see. So it's almost like riding in a 2-lane, well, actually, you can think about a highway, but having 2 lanes going the same way. Sometimes when you're not going fast enough, you need to veer over and let somebody else pass that has the vision. And not saying that they're taking over the vision, but they're taking over at that moment to lead the people to do something different. So, I don't know.
I mean, and all of our examples lean to that. You know, the disciples were a community within themselves, you know, and there was a community within the community. You know, when you think that there's more than even just the 12, there's even more than the 12. There were 70, there were, you know, more disciples, and there were communities within communities that were able to go out and go ye therefore, you know. So it seems to me, I've always, and I don't think anybody means anything any kind of way, but I don't even like the idea of like an armor bearer. And when I hear those things, like those terms in church, I'm like, no, you don't need an armor bearer. You need everybody else around you to have their armor on. You know, you need to equip, all the rest of the church needs to be equipped with armor, so you're not having to protect the whole flock. You know, it's not the pastor's job to protect the whole flock. We don't stay babes in the faith anymore. I mean, for forever. We're actually supposed to be growing and growing. We now have a relationship with the Lord that allows us to protect ourselves. You know, I get an opportunity to pray and ask the Lord for protection. My own self, you know, the pastor, I appreciate the prayers, and it's not to say I don't want them. It's just to say, hey, my relationship with the Lord is strong enough now to where, as I'm praying for myself, and I recognize and learn in the scriptures that the Lord also commands us to pray for our leaders. Now I'm taking up my armor and I'm protecting him as well. You know, so the reliance upon the pastor, like you said, to me, it's a metric that can never be met. You know, so many pastors are going to fail because of the pressure and the unrealistic expectation.
Yeah, that's good. And that being said, I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna move on because we got somewhere we're trying to go. But that being said, I don't think that excuses pastors from falling. I don't think that excuses pastors from not holding high regard to the level that they are. But I just think that we place too much responsibility on them rather than looking at the log in our own eye, rather than being like, what about me reading the Bible for myself? What about me seeking God for myself? What about me saying, okay, there's no small groups at my church, but I'm gonna go say hi to some people, and I'm not gonna just sit here and criticize what the church has done, but I'm gonna make it my responsibility to build a community that I want to see in my life. And that leads me to, again, we're gonna go back and forward. I feel like we're in a movie where you be like having like past like things.
Flashback.
Yeah, flashbacks. Go forward. So I think back to I don't think we did this at Galilee, but I know that when we went to like to church in Marshall, they did this, and they did like testimony services where people would be up and they will be sharing their life. And we've seen some lately in the last couple of years on social media where people be sharing their testimony, and you just be like, "Ooh, you sharing a lot of yourself in this testimony. Perhaps you could have." And the people going live in church, I have a lot of feelings about it, but that's not what we're gonna talk about here today. But I think that there can be an idea of oversharing. I don't know what is oversharing. I don't know if it's possible to overshare. I don't know if we should be able to just accept. I don't know. But I think that there is a balance that you should have to honesty and accountability within the church. That you should be able to be honest about what it is that you're going through. You should be able to be held accountable to an extent, because like Holly was saying earlier, like the ministry and friendships are two different things. And so I want to ask the question to you guys: how important do you feel like honesty and accountability is within a community? And what does that look like to you?
Well, for myself, I mean, that's the one thing that. So I was challenged. There was a Matt Chandler sermon jam, and he talks about honesty and accountability, and really realizing that for one, there's a desire, I guess, an ego part, an egotistical part of me that wants to look good in everybody's eyes. There's a part of me that wants to reserve the ugly, so nobody can hold that against me. But what I began to recognize is just that it's something that is extremely necessary. For one, because I can't grow without it. If I'm not honest about my weak areas, I don't know how to get them stronger. Because, and especially I don't have all the information. So having to be honest about my struggles, having to be honest about, and I've had some ugly struggles that I've had to go to friends of mine and just like, hey, listen, I'm in a bad place right now. And I have to be open and honest so that for one, I can have that accountability and know, of course, the Lord is watching me, but also too, there are physical eyes that, that are able to hold me to a higher standard as well.
That's good.
I don't believe that you can have a real community without that honesty and accountability. However, I do understand that there are different levels with different people, again, alluding back to knowing ministry versus friendship. But I also believe that when you're tuned into God, that He'll signify when you should share certain things with certain people, because there's a way to share and not to overshare, but you have to understand and use discretion within those conversations, because there will be some people that you talk to that can't handle your truth. It's not that you're afraid of sharing, but they can't handle what you've gone through because of what they're going through. So we do have to understand and lean into God and know when and what to share. But I believe that all of our testimonies will lead us, if we're ever openly sharing, that those things do become public in some form or fashion, because that's how we lead people to understanding the love of Christ and the forgiveness of Christ, because we've gone through and we've understood His love and forgiveness on a totally different level.
That's good.
I agree with both Holly. Like she was saying, that you can't really have it without honest accountability. Especially for me, just my personal thing, it just opened up healing for me. I'm able to be honest, and when I'm able to have that accountability partner, that's checking, it helped me, do a character check. Like, are you really walking out that you say that you are? Or it helps me to mature in this journey, because this walk is hard. Also, like she was saying, you have to know the difference between ministry and friendship. Like, I've been reading a book, and he talks about how you need to know and discern what category these people are in. Are they your friends? Are they your mentors or whatnot? So you know who you can share these things with. Because if you, like Holly was saying, if you share those things with the wrong people, that can lead to hurt or whatnot. So yeah. So definitely accountability, honesty is very important.
Yeah. Mike, you got something?
Yeah, I mean, even to that, I mean, and like, having that, for one, because you have to be vulnerable even to get to a place where you can find those people that are can be receptive to, can handle what, like Holly was saying, because the scripture says, confess your faults one to another. That's something that we have to get to a vulnerable place in order to do, and that's really, really tough. But it is a command in scripture for us, in order to grow. Because this whole thing is about us continuing not to stay in one place, but to continuing to move forward and also move forward together.
I have a question that I just thought of, and so I didn't give this question to you guys ahead of time. But if there is a person that, because I've seen this a lot too, right? Is I've seen people that are new to faith, that are newly coming in, and maybe they do overshare on accident because they feel like it's a safe place for me to share. Like, I've never had an opportunity like this. I've been forgiven. Let me lay my heart out for people. And then there is a sense of, there can be judgment from those who are listening that yields like shame or guilt, or like, ooh, should I have shared that? Like, is this a safe? So how do you find that balance, or how do you find the people that you're supposed to share with? Or what advice do you give to somebody that's coming in that's like, this should be safe, like this should be a safe space? Why can't I share my heart in this space?
I'm more of a very blunt person. So my first, and this is probably why I don't deal with people that just walk into church. They probably won't let me. But I would actually say, was everybody there when you did it? And I'm not being funny, but I'm wanting them to put their minds in the thought of, okay, everybody can't handle this. Everybody isn't where where you've been. And I think once we get to understand that, and understand that everybody's walk is different, because when we do walk in the church, we do think, okay, everybody is on level. But the reality is that just such as classism exists on the outside, it also exists on the inside. So some people will never, ever understand you going through, even though our struggles won't be the same, we'll probably be able to identify on some of those hurts or some of the emotions that we've shared, but everybody won't, because everybody is not honest about where they've been. And that's what I would say to them. Everybody can't handle their truth, because sometimes we learn that in life, that's your default, is to go to, I'm okay. I've never done that. I've always been perfect. That's the default. But the reality is, that's not real. That's not the original you. That's not where you've been. That's not what you've experienced. So just to bring that to their minds, and to understand that we have to understand that everybody's walk isn't different. Everybody's experience as far as emotions, we don't feel that, even especially because it's in their moment and they're sharing. And like you said, they're giving out so much. But also teaching them how to pray if they don't know how to pray, and teaching them about the word of God, so that they can understand that in those quiet times when you're with God, that's where you pour those things out. And then he in turn gives you the conversation that you have with others, so that you won't overshare, that you won't give those dirty, grimy things out until it's to the people that you're supposed to share them with.
Yeah.
That's probably harsh, but that's who I am.
No, I think that's honest though, because I think that that's me. I think that. So we talked about isolation some earlier, and I think that I do isolate, but I don't think that I isolate because I am introverted. So yes, I recharge in that way. But I think too that I'm just be scared. I just be like, I ain't gonna come in here and share my heart with y'all. I don't know y'all like that. But I don't allow myself to know people like that, because I am afraid of what will happen, because I have seen myself, because when you share, whether you're sharing with the right people or the wrong people, that accountability means that if I fall, they're going to call me on it again. And there is a part of me that's like, I would rather just fall in private and not have to deal with this. And so that's what I am learning through the distance that I created, that I'm like, why is nobody calling me? Why is nobody reaching out to me? It's because I created a distance in the community that I was in, because I was afraid of what it would look like to be held accountable. So I was like, I'm gonna keep everybody far enough away that I don't gotta really share nothing with nobody except for my family. And because my family, I tell my cousin all the time, because I love her with all my heart. But when we get on each other's nerves, she's still my cousin. So we can go away, Thanksgiving, we're gonna be back together, and it'll just we have to figure it out. But other people, like, I'll be like, I ain't got to see you no more. Like, throw this one away. Like, and I don't know that I do know that that's not the response, but I can see people thinking through that, having those kind of feelings in church. And Mitra shared, she said, honesty is very important. I think that a lot of people actually stray away from church or community because we don't show people who we were, and if we were honest, who we still are. That's very true.
See, I'll never forget
That's
somebody
real.
talking about one of the churches that, you know, I won't try at all to give anybody away or anything like that, but I'll never forget a church. They said, hey, I like going to this church because I can just go to the back, come and sit in the back. Nobody ever knows. I can hear the word and leave. You know, like, you don't have to, you know, when you have when you look for only that experience, I don't have to be challenged except for what's coming out of the pulpit. And then what's coming out of the pulpit, I internalize it on my own, you know, and then it's left up to my interpretation. I'm not bouncing it off anybody else. I don't have to deal with the fact that I may be wrong. You know, now I can just interpret it, then I can spread it however I want to spread it. But when you start talking about things with other people, and especially those that are faithful in their word as well, you know, somebody may say, hey, you know, I appreciate your thought, but I don't know if that's necessarily how you can interpret that based on other scripture, you know. So now you have to battle with that, or whether I was wrong. Now I feel dumb for even saying it or thinking it, you know. And so all of that humility gets dumped on you in a moment when you're having to commune with other people, and also to let them hold that mirror up to you, which is the word of God.
That's good. And I think that's something that people should keep in mind, is that community is humbling. It is constantly humbling. It is constantly like learning. Like, sometimes I be hearing people speak in church, and I be like, they don't have no friends. Because if they had friends, their friends would have told them, like, hey, and what you saying ain't right. I was like, maybe you should have ran that past somebody. More pastors need to run their sermons by somebody. But
you in my head, because I'm on a creative writing team for sermons for pastors all over the world, and I want to help. That's all I'm saying. So yeah.
You're
What'd you
a
say?
ghostwriter?
No, I said I want to be.
Oh, you want to ghostwrite? Hey, that's kind of...
No, and not necessarily, but I want to help. I mean, because I feel like that's a gift that God has given me, and for me to even recognize that there is a gift within me, to me, that's something that the Christian community had to help me to understand.
Yeah.
Do you know somebody else that's doing that?
I'm just
Is this...
No, I just see, I shouldn't have even said it. Be quiet. Get out there.
Hey, okay.
Be quiet, Mike.
I didn't know there was ghost.
Okay, but let's move. So we don't nobody say the
My bad.
I because even I shared with you guys about just me distance. And I am really learning a lot from these different conversations that we've been having every Monday about friendship. Because when I tell y'all, I'm really trying. I'm really trying to do better at that. But I know that in my own life that I have experienced hurt in church. I have experienced feeling excluded in church, feeling like I wasn't the cool enough person to be in the in crowd in church. I have experienced putting my trust in a pastor and feeling like that trust wasn't met, and being, oh my God, like what does this mean for everything else? I think that the biggest way that I saw that was even in like my dad's passing, right? And I talk about that a lot because that's an event in my life that I was just like, dang, like how do I trust God after this? And I think that after that, I remember having a conversation with my mom and with Lisa, and I was just like, I'm not gonna trust nobody else. I'm not gonna allow anybody else that's close to me, like as close as I allow my father to me. Because I was like, I don't want to lose and be hurt in this way again. So I'm just, for the last 3 years, y'all, I'm telling y'all, it was January that I began to breathe again. Because I was just like, everybody is at a distance. Only my family, my friends was like, I would be talking on the phone with people and be like, listen, we done talking now. Like hanging up, like, cause I was just like, I need to create boundaries with people. I don't want to be close to people. And I feel like God is doing the work in my heart. And it's happening in a weird way because I had to step away from some things that I thought were my identity. for me to reconcile myself back with God and with other people, and it not be from a place of like validating me. Because I think growing up in church, I grew up in church. I served in church my whole life. I've been at church every day of the week my whole life. I drove back from college to come back to church to teach youth on Wednesdays. Like, this is a part of who I thought I was. Like, this is what my identity is, to the point where I wasn't reading the Bible for me anymore. I'm reading the Bible for how I can regurgitate the Bible to other people. That I'm not getting to know people because I genuinely want to know them. I'm getting to know people because it's like a show. Like, put on your happy face, put on your church clothes, let's go in and do the performance. And I think that stepping away from those things, I don't advise people to step away from church if you are not saved. But I think that stepping away from church, even throughout the pandemic, has allowed me to be able to look at myself and look at my relationships with people and look at my relationships with God and be like, what is the motivation for this? Is it to impress people? Is it because they make you feel good? Or is it because you love God like you say you love God? Do you want to be in community with people because they will hold you accountable, because they will be humbling to you? Or do you want to be in community with people because you just need to stack up how many people are around you so that you look friendly? Like, that should ever be the motivation. So I wrote this question with that thought in mind, just like, God is reconciling me to people. And he's going to take away titles. He took away titles to do that reconciliation, so it didn't feel like I was like, I don't know how to explain it, but God is doing the work in me. And I wonder, how do you feel like, have you ever experienced like God reconciling you to the community of people, a community of believers? And what did that look like for you?
Can you answer it again? I'm sorry.
Have you ever experienced God like reconciling you to others, community, even outside of your family? How is God reconciling you to people currently? If he,
I didn't want to answer first, but I will. Um, Mine is grace. And I realize how much grace God has given me in so many situations. Um, and I myself personally am a very mean person. Nobody believes it, but I am so mean, and I can be very hard on others to the point that I don't want to have anything to do with them. But when I think about the grace of God and the grace that He's allowed me, that He's given me each and every day, I have to remember that that's the grace that He's given me, even to still be alive. And when I think about that and going and returning to church in so many ways, I have to give them that grace, whoever they are, whatever they are, whoever they were to me or are to me or to become to me. I have to remember that grace on a different level, because sometimes I don't accept people because I have a hard time accepting myself. It has nothing to do with them, but it has everything to do with my internal struggle. So I have to account for that and be accountable for that. But it's definitely grace. That's the only way.
I would say I just have to. It's really about putting myself out there, and I tell Leisha tell a lot of people that Mike is super friendly. I do try to give a friendly disposition, but I normally, my natural state, I desire to have no conversations with anybody. Most of the time I'm just like, all right, I'm out. That's my basis. But I've had to shove that to the side and say, what's really important here. And Pastor Richardson, Pastor Leroy Richardson, shout out to him. He talked to me one time about the church because I was really struggling with it. And he was talking to me about how we learn so much from every experience in the church, whether they're good or bad, and I desire to just like shield myself from both. Like, I don't want good experience. I don't want bad experience. I just want to go to church, leave, check that off my list. But just being able to just put myself out there to people that I normally wouldn't talk to, and it's nothing against the person at all. It's just my natural state to have to push that to the side and say, okay, let me extend myself. If a man wants to have friends, he's got to be found friendly. So having to, look at, for one, because I'm challenged that this is, the Imago Dei, this person that I'm walking by, whoever it may be, this is somebody made in the image of God, and this may be an opportunity that that the Lord has for me. But if I shut it down, that's not even fair to them or to my relationship with the Lord.
That's good. So if we're getting close to the end of time, and I do want to take a minute. We talked about church hurt some. I didn't go in depth because I don't feel like the internet is the space to go in depth. I'm also gonna say this to y'all: if y'all be going live in church and recording people shouting and putting it on the internet, it's a lot. And I'm gonna just leave it right there. It's a lot for me. As for me in my house, don't put me on the internet in full shout, please and thank you. I'm sorry, that felt like it could have been okay. Jasmine, shut up. Let me keep going. So if somebody has gone to church and they have experienced church hurt and they have experienced like feeling like they don't belong in this space, or they have experienced like they overshare and they're feeling intense shame or intense guilt in this moment, what would be your encouragement to them to stay, that they do belong? What would you say to them?
Well, if depending, like you said, with church hurt, if I understand your question correctly, I always want to, for one, have everybody, okay, let's take a look at self first, and let me adjust my expectations based on the person that I am. My perfection is lacking. My ability to be empathetic can be minimal. But sometimes I'm not in a great mood. I say things that that I shouldn't say. My ability to hurt people is really high. So the fact that I've been given mercy first by God and then by others allows me, the path to open that door for somebody else. And I just encourage people like, hey, if you've experienced that, for one, it's not, you have to understand the same way that the earth wasn't created imperfect. The earth was created perfect. The idea of the church body, or the structure of the church body as it is laid out in scripture, there's nothing wrong with it. But unfortunately, we live amongst people, and to throw the baby out with the bathwater ends up, with a future that looks very bleak, for the individual. So I just encourage people not to hurt themselves. Like, don't hurt yourself because somebody else hurt you. They say hurt people hurt people. Most times, hurt people hurt themselves. While in trying to hurt others, they hurt themselves as well. So sometimes the best idea, not sometimes, every time, the best idea is to lay that hurt at the feet of Jesus and say, Lord, this really hurt me. Like these are supposed to be your people. This is where a relationship with the Lord comes into play, is it's like, what do you have to say about this? And I think we find plenty of examples in scripture where there's hurt in the church, there's hurt amongst the body of believers. But yet and still there's safety. As crazy as that is, there's still safety there as well.
That's good.
If someone's been hurt in the church, and I'm just gonna go from my personal example. I was given the opportunity to confront what hurt me. Not in totality, but I was given an opportunity to kind of get a closure from that and to confront the people that did hurt me. So if someone has that ability to go back and have a conversation with that individual or with those individuals that hurt them, definitely take that opportunity, because it allows you to identify that thing. Because so many times we want to just make it very general, but there are so many specific things that are the root to our hurt and our discomfort that we won't identify. So my thing is always find the root and then deal with that, and then allow God to replant. because we can't do it on our own. I believe even Mike said, realizing that as much as you want to be outside of that body, there are benefits to being in the body. There's the arm, the leg, the eyes, the ears, all those things, even that the Bible talks about, that those things have specific purposes, and that we are a part of a larger body. And to not shy away from those things, because we always also have to identify that it wasn't God that hurt us, but it was people. And it wasn't even that person, but it was the spirit that was indwelling in that person, or that they were even dealing with. So we have to remember that as well. And we are an imperfect person. And we have to also identify the fact that we've probably hurt somebody before as well. So we have to give credence to that. Also give grace and forgiveness in that moment. It's not easy. It's not simple. But you can always return, even if it's not in the same church community or same church home. But you can always go back.
Deb, you got anything to add?
No, I think they covered it.
If I could say something to somebody that has experienced church hurt or just feels like they don't belong there, and it's because of something that happened within the church, I would like to say that I'm sorry. That I apologize as much as I can for, because I know that you go in with hopefulness, and I know what it feels like to have your hopefulness crushed, right? And so I apologize, because the idea is for us to reflect Christ. And if we didn't do that as a body, then that's our bad. But my hope also is just reiterating what Mike and Holly said. It's just that, but the church, just like everywhere else, is made up of imperfect people. And so when you open yourself up for love, you open yourself up to be hurt too. And that may not be the only time that you are hurt, but the thing to remember is that we are supposed to be trying to reflect God. God is not a reflection of us and of our behavior. So when we messed up, that doesn't mean that God is going to hurt you like that. When we didn't understand what it was that you were saying, that doesn't mean that God isn't going to understand what you were saying. When we didn't listen well, or we were on our phone while you were talking and you were really trying to tell us something that was important, that doesn't mean that God is going to be distracted, because we are imperfect, but God is somebody that's going to love you perfectly. And so remember that as we mess up, is that God is not reflecting us. We are reflecting him. And we're going to keep trying to do this together, and remembering, I don't even want to say that I don't know, but I hope that if you're away from the church and you're afraid about entering in because you've been hurt by it, that you know that people gonna be people. That's what they said. What they said in lottery ticket. They gonna lie, they gonna steal, they gonna cheat. That's what they
I've
gonna
never seen that.
We was on the roof with Brandon T. Jackson and Lil Bow Wow. People gonna be people. Okay, but people gonna be people. But we have to know that God is not like man that he would lie. God is love, and that we are doing our best to reflect him. And if we aren't, then check us too. So yeah, I appreciate my guests for being on tonight. I hope that something was said that was helpful to people that are listening. I thank everybody for tuning in. I pray that you were blessed. I pray we don't get this intensely talking about our faith every week, but my faith is something that defines me. And so my prayer is that you know that God loves you, and you live a life that is hopeful, and that you are able to let the joy of the Lord be your strength and experience joy on this side. And so I'm praying that for you. I'm praying that you find a community that is honest and accountable and humbling and loves you well, because I think that's what God wants for you. So yeah, love y'all. See y'all next.
Yeah.
Be back Monday next week. Do y'all have anything that you want people to check out on your pages? I know that there is one person that has a podcast.
I don't know if this is the time or space, but I appreciate that shout out. The Success Estate podcast is uploaded if you want to go check it out on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify. Thank you, Jazz, for letting me put that little spot in there.
Yeah. All right, y'all. We'll catch y'all next week.
All right.